I have worked at the last 6 World Cups in different roles. The one I particularly remember well is France '98. Scotland-Brazil, that first game, the Tartan Army created a fantastic atmosphere. That was great to be at. And then, of course, obviously the story had the perfect ending.
Hi, I'm Ollie, and today I'm at Wembley Stadium, the iconic home of football and the home of UCFB's Wembley campus. Today I'm going to be talking to UCFB's Multimedia Sports Journalism lecturer, Tom Skippins. We're talking about his career in journalism, in which he's worked at 6 World Cups. We're going to be talking about the Qatar World Cup in December, and we'll also be talking about life as a journalist and UCFB's Multimedia Sports Journalism course. So Tom, you've worked at a whopping 6 World Cups, must have been incredible. What was your highlight?
So one of the advantages of being so old, yes, I have worked at the last 6 World Cups in different roles, different capacities definitely, but I think based on the adage that you never forget your first one, the one I particularly remember well is France '98, very long time ago, but it was a wonderful tournament. It was an interesting time for England, and you don't know it at the time, but I was at the England-Argentina game, which became a sort of very iconic game with Beckham's red card and Michael Owen's goal. And those kind of memories, they grow in your own memory because they become so significant later on. But it was an interesting time for England, and I really genuinely think that if we had got through that penalty shootout, talking as an England fan, which obviously I am, then we really could have gone quite a long way in that tournament. But yeah, that whole experience of being at my first World Cup is something I'm very fond of. I mean, you always get a buzz out of doing it, and just being at a World Cup is why you would do this job. But that first one is the one I remember certainly.
Brilliant. And then what about standout moment from there? I mean, you just said about if England got through, they would have faced, it would be Holland, wouldn't it?
Yes,
and then that Bergkamp goal would have never happened.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I mean, all ifs and buts, of course, and that's the joy of tournament football. I mean, I've worked on several tournaments where England have been dramatically disappointing. So Euro 2000 I worked on where, once again they fell away very badly. But I do think in France '98 there was that possibility for them to go a long way. But other things in that tournament, I went to the opening game where Scotland had qualified, only just qualified again last year
Brazil,
for a major tournament. Scotland-Brazil, that first game, the Tartan Army created a fantastic atmosphere. That was great to be at. And then, of course, obviously the story had the perfect ending in that the host nation, who were a great team, Zidane's team, Deschamps' team, they went all the way and won it. And, just to be at the final was something special, yeah. So you never forget those.
Brilliant. And then in terms of, you've already mentioned your top 1, but in terms of top 3, I mean, you've had a variety. You've been to Africa, Southeast Asia, Russia. What others do you think would be in there?
I think it's always really the whole experience really for me, because I'm often working in a capacity where I'm a little bit removed from some of the games. I get to go to games, but sometimes I'm producing. So it's the whole sort of atmosphere. South Africa was fascinating because it was actually a difficult working environment in terms of where we were and travelling around the country and being at a World Cup at a country that wasn't particularly football savvy was quite interesting. That was a difficult experience, but interesting. And Russia in 2018, similarly, lots of negative press around Russia, and clearly, the world has gone on in a fairly terrible way since, as far as Russia's concerned. But being at that tournament was really, really interesting because the country changed itself, transformed itself, and you got a very, very different football-friendly experience. And going to games in Russia was actually really enjoyable. It was very easy to work around. It was everything, and that's the thing of if you get a big opportunity, you shouldn't go in with any preconceptions, because you can be surprised one way or the other, and that's the joy of the work. You never really know what you're going to get, and that beats any other job you could do, really, from that point of view.
Definitely perk of the job.
Yeah.
So in terms of these big tournaments, you've worked at World Cups, you said Euro 2000 then, Tokyo Olympics.
Yeah.
How intense is it at these tournaments compared to sort of your regular Premier League season?
Well, obviously it's a time frame scenario, really. I mean, obviously if you go to an Olympic Games or a World Cup, you're looking at covering an event that lasts 4 weeks. In Tokyo, for instance, I was in Tokyo for 4 weeks. The games themselves last 2.5, but there's preparation, there's training, the variety. I mean, Tokyo was obviously a difficult Olympic Games in terms of COVID and the restrictions in the city and no crowds in the stadia, but still the sport itself was fascinating and surprising, and there's always stories to tell, so you can't beat it, really, from that point of view.
So you said about Tokyo, as a multimedia sports journalist, you could be on social media, written, video. One minute you could be in the pouring rain covering a game with 2,000 people, the next thing you're on a plane out in Brazil sweating it out. How is the role so varied, and how do students and multimedia journalists have to adapt?
Well, I can only talk from initially at least from my own experience as an older journalist who came into the industry when it was one thing, and I've always worked predominantly in television, and that meant, editing and putting together packages for news programs or highlights programs, and you worked in a much more sort of linear way, if you like. You worked on one product. Yeah. Over the years, the many years that I've been doing it, it has evolved and turned into something entirely different, as you know, and as our students know. Hopefully, it is an industry now where there are so many different outlets and platforms that need servicing at the same time, but they also need different things. So in the same way that I, as an oldster, have to sort of master different skills when I go to Tokyo and get my head around that quickly, today's journalist has to be adding to his or her skill set all the time. You can't ever rest on your laurels in terms of what you think you know. You can know the subject, but the means of delivery and the platforms that you're delivering for are constantly evolving, and that strikes me as the great joy and fascination of the job, really, that you're always having to learn new skills.
That brings me on to the next one. So how has the role of a multimedia sports journalist changed over the years, especially in the digital age with the rise of social media and more push for video content?
Well, it's just got so much faster. I mean, I from my first tournament in France, where I was providing live reports and packages for ITV's breakfast coverage. So I had one outlet. I did other stuff as the tournament went on, but I had one focus for my day. So I would film during the day, put together a package. I might do a live stand-up into that show the next morning. One product to serve. It developed very quickly. Then a couple of years later, I was at Euro 2000 for Sky, and that was a rolling news service. So obviously, I was doing stuff all day, providing. But once again, in a fairly sort of linear one destination kind of way. Now, of course, I would be looking to provide stuff for social media. I would be looking to provide clips for Twitter. I would be, writing live blogs during a game. I would be doing packages afterward. Someone in my position would be providing content to all sorts of outlets all the time based on the game. The experience, doesn't stop in that sense, and that is the great joy. It's the great challenge for journalists to come into the industry and be able to adapt and to furnish all those outlets, because they need different skills. But it's also the great fun of doing it. Obviously, you're always involved.
So on that point, so the traditional journalist used to write reports, etc., etc. Yeah. Do you think it's better to focus on sort of one skill, whether it's video, social media, written, or have a bit of a broad understanding of all?
I think it's now important for journalists coming into the industry, and what we hope that we achieve with our students on our course is that they get an introduction and an opportunity to understand how every element of the media works, how it all connects together, how social media, which is now so important, plays a role. I mean, what we want to achieve more than anything else is an understanding that the basic principles behind sports journalism haven't changed from when we were just looking at newspaper reports.
Yeah.
There are principles of accuracy and being able to attribute and support your story and having good sources, etc., that you always need to understand. But once you have those principles, there are all sorts of different areas that you can head into. In the end, people will specialise. People will find the niche. People will find the area that appeals to them. But I think what we want to happen is that the students come into the industry having a broad understanding of everything that's available to them, and that then over time the focus on one area becomes their decision.
And it's an ever-changing industry to be in. Like you say, from when you started to now, it's just a completely different style of work. So over the next sort of 5-10 years, what trends can you foresee coming into sports journalism?
I think the trend, as I would imagine, is likely to continue very much in the vein that it has now. The speed of delivery, the need to turn around content quickly is just going to carry on getting faster. I think TikTok will continue to be an increasingly influential sort of platform for content creators and very, very important. there will always be a new development down the line that we don't know of yet, and I suspect that's going to emerge in time. But the general trend is for speed of delivery, and is for being first with the story. But and the underside of that, or the area that also needs to be addressed, is that if you're going to be fast, you also need to be accurate, and so journalists are on their mettle. It's more dramatic, it's more dynamic, there's more opportunities, but the change in the industry doesn't make the job easier. It makes it more demanding in lots of ways, but that's the challenge. But journalists always need to be accurate. They need to get their story right first, but of course they're on their mettle to be fast with it too. And I don't think that genie's not going to go back into the bottle. That's the way things are going to carry on developing. And the journalists who come into the industry are going to need to react to that.
So you've had loads of experience obviously in your career. You're now a UCFB lecturer in multimedia sports journalism. So can you just tell people about the course, what's involved, what you'll be doing? A bit about UCFB might be good.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, as someone who'd been in the industry for a long time, I felt that, how this sounds, but I felt that I might have experiences and skills that I could look to pass on, and so I got involved with UCFB, and I've really enjoyed it because it's being part of the Multimedia Sports Journalism team has in lots of ways taken me into new areas. Having had a fairly traditional sort of broadcasting career, it's put me on my mettle in certain areas, and it's I'm often working in areas, for instance, social media, where I suspect the students very broadly know an awful lot more than I do, and that's really interesting. I learn
always learning.
Yeah, exactly. I'm learning from that all the time. As I say, what I hope I can give them, and what certainly my colleagues in the department can, is that basic underpinning of how journalism works, how it should be done, the importance of accuracy, etc., that I've mentioned. But yeah, the degree as a whole, I think what it does do is it furnishes that whole aim that I mentioned, that we should produce students who come out into the industry feeling that they have a range of skills and that they've experienced enough options to make their own decision about where they focus. So there is a focus on the written side of things. That's not neglected. There's a broadcasting element throughout the course that's developed from year one into year two. There's obviously a social media, a digital element all the time. So the structure of the course all the way through, from the level 4s into level 5, and then into the final year where students are starting to really specialise and really focus on what they want to do, and also working on longer forms of work, dissertations, etc. Then it does cover every base really, and the structure of the course is that you develop those skills side by side, so that you get the chance to focus in as time goes on, but your range of skills is broadened out. So that's what appealed to me about the course, that I felt that it really did provide a real range of experience and opportunities. I mean, myself and people of my generation, we learnt the job by doing it. I went straight into the job, made my mistakes in the more obvious public way, I guess, and learnt that way. This course hopefully gives students the chance to get that understanding, but also get the chance to get out into the workplace. Just tell me if I'm going on too long, but one thing I think the course and UCFB does very well is it helps students find their way into practical work experience opportunities very quickly, not just at the end, but during the course. Our first years are already working in social media for football clubs or different sports clubs. There are lots of opportunities already, and the students are finding those for themselves, but they're using their skills straight away, and that's really important.
Brilliant. And then once graduating from UCFB with a multimedia sports journalism degree, what type of career can you expect to sort of or look for? Or I mean, the obvious one's a sports journalist, but not everyone can be lucky enough to get them jobs, and there's loads of different avenues off that. So yeah, what type of career would you be looking to get into?
Well, I'm hoping that the course, beyond the obvious skills that you get in journalism, will take you into all sorts of potential areas: PR, communications, marketing. Most of the students have one thing in common. Obviously, that's got to be the starting point. Otherwise, you're at the wrong place. They have a love of sport. They want to work within that world. But as we know, as sports fans, it's an ever-growing world. It develops and changes all the time, and there are all sorts of commercial elements that can be of interest. I mean, I guess our hope is that, you know, the students who leave have options. They have, you know, they've developed their skills, they've also developed their career opportunities as they've gone through, so that they come out. I mean, I'm, you know, obviously just thinking of one or two third-year students who've just left. They had opportunities lined up straight away, you know.
Brilliant.
So it should be seamless, you know. Whereas, you know, you can come into this industry and there can be this element, oh, well, you've been to university, but you don't know the real world. I think what this course does do is that it combines the two. It places an emphasis on the students developing their skills and getting work experience, getting placements while they're studying, so that there isn't that sort of, you know, you've got a degree but you don't really know what the industry is, because they should come into it with that kind of practical experience straight away, and that should really be a shortcut to help them sort of kick on to their career quite quickly.
Brilliant. Yeah, experience is key, especially in this industry. So then finally, one piece of advice for anyone wanting to get into sports journalism, multimedia journalism, that type of role.
I think it's just being open, and it's just really embracing every opportunity. When I got into it, I'd done a different career, but I had a sense that I wanted to do it. So long ago, I wrote thousands of letters. I don't know if anyone remembers letters, how they used to work. I'd write, on my typewriter, I'd write letters and send them off. You had to push on doors, and eventually one opened, and I got in, and it worked out that way. But so that kind of principle will never go away, really. It's done different ways, but you just have to make yourself available. You just have to make yourself open to any experience. And I think our students understand that. I think the way the world's developed, social media, is that we connect together so much more readily now. It's so much easier. You can make contacts within the industry, within the world, so much easier. So that's easier for students, but you've just got to be open, and you've got to think, oh, well, maybe that isn't the opportunity for me because there's not much money or whatever. That's not the point. Any situation that gets you into an impractical environment where you're a working journalist on sport can only be a positive, because you learn from it and you meet other people. The key to this industry, probably in common with all industries, is the contacts and connections that you make, and that's what carries you through any career. So that's the key. Meet people and make yourself available.